Welcome back to Philosophy Dialogues. Today I'm joined by Roger Sorrow, who's a Center for Nonviolent Communication trainer. Um, and I guess I'll have him introduce himself a little bit. I guess my first question would be, while explaining the Center for Nonviolent Communication and its mission, could you look back at your own history and what disagreements were like in your family? Were they encouraged, discouraged? And in other words, could you give us a rundown on what led you to this point?
So what draws me to working with the Center for Nonviolent Communication is because of the difference that nonviolent communication has made in my life and how I see it impacting other people's lives and resulting in more connection. So that's why I do the work that I do and want to partner with the Center for Nonviolent Communication, as it's just more effective to work together with a group and an organization that's their mission. So what led to me to it was very simple. My first wife quit after 28 years, 4 kids, 4 grandkids, and said, "I'm out of here." And so, in the last couple of years we were together, she had discovered the nonviolent communication and tried to interest me in it. And I watched one video with Marshall Rosenberg, the guy who I say discovered the process. Most people will say he created it, but I think the energy in the process has always been there, and he just simply discovered it and put names on the different pieces of it. Helped us understand it. And she was all excited about this, and I looked at it and oh my God, you got to be kidding! This guy looks like a convict. I don't care what he's selling. I don't want any. And later, when I met him and worked with him for years, I shared with him that story, and he laughed. And that was one thing I liked about him. It was his sense of humor. He was a powerful trainer and presenter, author and teacher and healer and entertainer. So when he was on, he was like a master. And I was honored and privileged to work with him for many years. And so the wife had quit. And so the relationship, and I thought, well, all I got to do is jump back into, get into this nonviolent communication, and then we could use that together to patch things up, and reconcile. And so I worked at that for a couple of years with her, and then after going to one of these 9-day residential events, working with Marshall. On the way home from that, she said, "That doesn't change anything. I still have no interest in being in a relationship." And so it was at that point that I knew it was time for me to move on. But it was in that 2-year period of me studying and reading the books and listening to the tapes and the videos, and that's when I got it. And so that's what led me to my involvement. And there was such transformation and healing for myself. It gave me tools to understand what was going on inside me. So growing up, I had no examples of positive conflict resolution. Okay, it was just domination and control, and it's like dad was a judge, and mom was this super devout Catholic, and it didn't matter what topic you brought up, or what idea you had, it got sliced and diced at the dinner table, and everybody would tell you what's wrong with it. And I never saw, positive, creative problem solving or conflict resolution. Yeah. And as a result, I just learned to avoid it. And I think it's fairly typical. Most of us do that. We don't see conflict as an opportunity for connection because we don't have the tools to really listen to each other without getting triggered and upset. And so we just avoid it. I know. So I grew up just go along, get along, go along, and don't rock the boat or speak your truth because the backlash wouldn't be worth it. So that
So
was my experience. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just curious. Your dad was a judge. Wow, that must have been quite the upbringing then, and quite the change in your later life.
Well, and he was really good at his work, and it took me some years to appreciate him more for who he was, because he was a very compassionate judge. He tried work comp cases, and he really had a passion for injured workers and their families. And so he did a lot for injured workers in the state of California. because he was a very prolific um, decision maker. The typical work comp judge at that time was generating about 30 decisions per month, and Dad was cranking out 100.
Oh my goodness.
And he was very pro injured worker because he just had more compassion for injured workers and their families and wanted insurance companies to pay what that worker was entitled to under the law, you know. So that could be we could make a movie about his life, but that's a diversion.
Yeah. And I did just want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the process behind nonviolent communication. Could you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So the process is involves some principles that involve. It starts with an intention to create a quality of connection in which we enjoy giving to each other. Okay, and so with that intention, then it's a lot easier to find ways in which we can develop strategies that meets everybody's needs, or as many needs as we possibly can. Okay, when that's the intention. Okay, and unfortunately, that's rarely the case in conversations that people are wanting to be right, or they want to be heard, or they want to blame somebody, or the intentions are quite different. And
Yeah. With that process, I was wondering if you could recount some times where you've successfully gone about dealing with such disagreements, and how did you apply that process?
sure, yeah, many times. So the ones that's popping up for me right now is I remember a situation with my mom, and it was close to the end of her life. She was uh, um, in her early 80s, and so we were getting together to celebrate her birthday at a restaurant. And Mom was kind of old school in many of her ways of thinking, and so when you had an appointment to meet somebody at a certain time and place, that meant you if you weren't 10 minutes early, you were late, you know. And so I was there late because I was there right at the designated time, not 10 minutes early. And we were at a restaurant that she personally had made the reservation. And I get there, and it's one of these both indoor outdoor seating, and Mom has a very strong preference for indoor. Okay, and I see she's out there on the patio, and bundled up with an overcoat and the collar turned up, and just looked miserable. Okay, and she was with my brother, and he too, and then both of them. I just walked up and said, "Mom, what you doing out here?" She was upset, uh, because she had made the reservation, but when she got there, they said they had no record of the reservation, and seated her out there and the outdoor dining area, and she was upset. So I just said, well, let me go talk to the staff. Okay, and then I did, and so when I went to talk to the staff, I know that Mom's already probably given them a tongue lashing, right? And so they're going to need some empathy for what their experience is. So that's where I began. So hi, I'm with the lady out here, and she's 80, and it's her birthday, and immediately they knew who it was. And reacted and thought I was coming to give them some more. I said, um, and they started defending themselves right away, like, oh, this is wasn't on the list. Blah, blah, blah. And I said, I know. You don't write the list. The list is given to you, and you're doing the best you can with the information that you have. They relaxed. I said, is there any possibility you can put us on the list for the next available table inside? And they said, yes, and can we have the table you're at right now? And I said, sure, we'll move to the bar and let us know when we can be reseated, okay? And so I went and got Mom, and we didn't even get seated in the bar before they had a table, and we were inside. And the evening then progressed well. And after we've been seated inside, Mom relaxes, and she looks at me and says, that communication stuff of yours works. Yeah.
Just to just
So it was a simple story, but it was about being able to use it in a situation where it was really important to my mom. It was her birthday. She didn't really have very many left after that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad you got to be able to do it, and just something as simple as empathy can go a long way. Is what
Yeah.
I come from. And then I guess on the other side of the coin, what do you do when a dialogue attempt fails? Like, well, fails is a strong words, but in other words, how do you diffuse a potentially out of control argument?
Well, I like when Marshall used to say that. He would just say apply empathy, and if that doesn't work, repeat treatment, or increase the dose, or he would just come back with more empathy, and really being present and listening to what it's like uh, for that person. Yeah.
Is there a time where you applied a certain amount of empathy and then you realized that you had to do even more to break through with a person?
I'm sure there is, and I'm trying to think of a situation. Um,
We can always return back to that question if a
yeah,
situation.
I don't have an example on the tip of my tongue for that. So, that happens often. Let's see. One situation would be, I'm in an apartment complex, and it got bought by a new owner, and they resurfaced the parking area and reassigned parking spaces. And I've been paying for two spaces because there was two of us here in the apartment. And when they resurfaced them, um, they eliminated some parking spaces and said that now I only had one.
Oh,
Right, yeah. And so uh, there's no street parking for blocks. And so um, I've had multiple conversations with them about that, but to no avail. I mean, I finally got kind of an empathic response from them, but they were pretty locked into their position, and so then I just have to. My roommate and I came up with a strategy that works for us, about sharing the space and where the other one would park. Yeah.
okay. So you tried empathy with the landlord, but then you realized you also had to try empathy with your roommate as well. Is that right?
Uh, right. Not so much with him. We were in the same boat, so we were both wanting to stay here, and we now knew we had one parking spot to share versus two, previously having two. Another example that I found really interesting was a friend of mine who's also a trainer in nonviolent communication. She got notification from the IRS that she had made a mistake in her return, and she owed more money, and there was going to be interest and a penalty. Okay,
Oh,
and she was uh, frustrated because it was an honest mistake, and she was happy to pay. She wanted to pay the tax she owed, but she didn't want to have to pay a penalty and interest. And
cool. Yeah.
so what she did is she wrote him a letter and said what I just said, right?
Mhm.
And she says, I'm enclosing two checks. One is just for the tax that I owe, and the other one is for penalty and interest, or the tax plus penalty interest. And I want you to decide, what's the right thing to do. Okay, and cash one and tear up the other, and I'll know your decision. And they just cashed the one for the tax and tore up the one for penalty and interest. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Who knew the IRS had a heart?
Yeah. When you said the IRS, I was like, I can't really. That's
Right.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. So I guess just to deviate from that a little bit, uh, what do you do if you find yourself getting upset in a situation? Like, how do you get off that frustration?
Uh, okay. So anger is a powerful teacher. Okay. And I've offered classes on this many times. And to me, it's one of the five friends. There's anger, and then there's guilt, shame, depression, and anxiety. Okay?
Hmm.
And so I call them friends because the life-serving purpose of each of those feelings, okay, is to let me know that my thinking, the story that I'm making up, what I'm telling myself is not going to get me where I want to go.
Mm.
It's time to pull over, turn off the engine, and cool down, okay? So stop and breathe. That's step number one. Stop and breathe. And then what I like to do is what Marshall Rosenberg would say, enjoy the jackal show. Jackals would be judgments and criticisms and the shoulds, okay, of myself or of others, okay? And just stop. I'm not verbalizing them to anybody, but I want to get present to them, okay? So I can hear and pay attention to what judgments I have, okay? And so it's easier to get with an example. So I'm out on the freeway. I'm 75 in the fast lane. I'm enjoying my tunes. Life is good. I'm in a groove. Okay, and I look up and there's one of those big pickup trucks. I hope you don't have one. Jacked up on the big wheels, and their bumpers, 24 inches from mine. And so that's all observational language, okay? And so, but my jackal are saying this asshole is too close. He shouldn't be driving like that. What is wrong with this idiot? And what do you think I'm thinking about doing now, right? I'm thinking about hitting the brakes, right? Teach this sucker a lesson, okay? But I realize, because I'm taking a time to process this, that what's really the most important to me in that situation, what is my need, what's most important to me, I think it's pretty obvious. It would be safety. Safety for me, the vehicle, and people behind me, the people around me. I'm wanting safety. I'm wanting safety to guide me and 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 whatever it is that I say or do next, okay? And so I signal, and when it's safe to pull over, I might speed up, or whatever the safe thing is to do to move away. Yeah, yeah, and and so it's stop and breathe. Notice the judgments, and then translate those judgments to get to what the need. The need is the core concept in the nonviolent communication. Needs are universal. You've studied it a little bit, so you know that it's going to be honesty and integrity and sustenance and peace and connection and community and contribution and intelligence and creativity, etc. Okay, meaning and purpose in our lives. Okay, these needs are universal. All human beings, doesn't matter age, race, gender, culture, we all have the same needs. And the only thing that any of us is ever doing is trying to get our needs met in the best way that we know how. Okay, that's the only thing we ever do. And so this driver behind me, that's what that person's doing. Okay, and I'm wanting that person to get their needs met in a way that I can, and everybody else can be saved. Yeah. And so when I look at it that way, and when I look at people that way, then I'm less likely to get triggered by what they do. Now, when I get triggered, I don't blame them. It's never ever what somebody else says or does that makes me mad. It's my thinking that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. They shouldn't say that. They shouldn't act like that. They shouldn't behave like that. They should do this or that. Okay. It's that thinking is what generates the anger. The purpose of the anger is for me to notice that thinking. And so I can use it and translate it to get to what's important to me. They shouldn't be doing that because it's not safe. And what I'm wanting is safety for me and everybody else. Okay.
Yeah, and I get that's interesting to me. I've never thought of it like that, but you're absolutely right. Like someone can be tailgating, for instance, and you can see drivers have completely different reactions to that. And that's because, as you pointed out, it's not the action itself, but it's the way you process that action.
Right. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I've personally just started driving, so this is good information for me as well. Um,
Yeah. And there's many opportunities out there to practice. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. You don't have to get on the freeway, just get in the parking lot, and you're waiting for somebody to pull out, and you're waiting for that spot, and somebody else has got you snookered, and they got a better angle at it coming from they whip around the corner, see the spot, boom, they get it.
Mm,
And even though you're obviously sitting there waiting with maybe a turn signal on, and I'm waiting for that spot. And yeah.
yeah. I guess like I know in driving it's very useful, but like, what are some other general areas that nonviolent communication can be applied to? Though I will say, driving is very useful for me still.
Right. Well, driving is the one that I use because there's so many of us can relate to it. Okay.
Mhm.
But nonviolent communication can be applied anywhere there's a heartbeat, anywhere there's people, even one person. Okay. Because first and foremost, it's about connection with ourselves. Okay. And getting present to what our needs are. So for me, that the definition of needs that I like is, source energy moving through us, seeking self-fulfillment. Okay, it's an energy that's alive, an energy that has no beginning and no end, an energy that wants nothing other than for us to thrive. Okay, and so different aspects of that energy, we give it different names like honesty and integrity, community, contribution, connection, etc. And those are different aspects of that energy. And I lost track of the question.
Oh, I was just asking, like, in what areas could nonviolent communication be applied to? But I think you've answered it. It's every area where there's life.
Right, right. Whether it's in personal relationships with family or friends or co-workers, so it can be used in the business place. If people spent more time, or at least as much time, focused on connection as they do on productivity, that if they balance that, there'll be times when we need to pay more attention. People aren't having fun. They're not liking their work. Attitudes are down. Absenteeism increases. Productivity really drops off. Okay. We need to pay attention to that. And when we get that taken care of, then productivity will come back up. Okay? And then we can shift our attention to it. Because now we're working together as a team. How do we bring productivity up? And it's in constant flux. Yeah.
This whole process is really interesting. It's something I also am personally interested in learning more about, and I would imagine some of my viewers are too. So, do you mind like giving some information on how we might get involved in nonviolent communication?
Yes. Okay. So I do some classes more and more lately online. So so you can see what I'm offering with my work, my website, which is chooseconnection.com. This choose connection, no space between those words, chooseconnection.com. There you can see what I'm currently offering, the projects that I got going on. Some of them are online, some of them are in person, some of them are in collaboration with the local Santa Barbara City College, and then other projects are in collaboration with the Center for Nonviolent Communication. I have a big online NBC conference. It's an annual thing. This will be my 15th year doing it, I think. And this year is being hosted by the NBCacademy.com, which is an online educational organization, right? And so there's a ton of resources online now. And in your own area, you're in the Bay Area, there's baynbc.org. Yeah. And I know a number of the folks that are working there and highly recommend their work. So you've got lots of resources close by.
Fantastic, thank you. And also, I'll try to put a lot of links below for the viewers as well. But sorry, could you your website again? Do you mind spelling that out?
I'm happy to. Chooseconnection.com. Do you want me to type it in the chat?
Do you mind? Yeah, that would be
No, I
great.
don't mind. Yeah. So,
because I'd love for myself and also the people watching to be able to find you.
yeah, sure. I'm not very fast at this stuff, but there we go.
Choose connection. Okay.
Yeah.
And for anyone watching right now, I'll also provide this link down below in the description.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Roger. I guess just to wrap up, do you have any last tips for young people who want to go about respectful disagreements?
Yeah, make an agreement to listen to each other, okay? And take turns talking, okay? Okay, I can listen for 3 minutes, okay? And then at the end of that time, I'm willing to reflect back what you said until I've got it, what you said. And then it'll be my turn. Okay, so if you can enter into, if you can make agreements about listening to each other like that, you're both much more likely to get heard.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's great advice. I'll certainly be trying to follow it.
Well, thank you, Dylan. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you too. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate all your insights and your experience. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Let me know if you want to do it again.
All right. I will do.
Take care.
Um,
Bye for now.
bye. Thank you. And goodbye, everyone.